Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Jason Moss, who's the creator of the CEO Freedom Formula. Jason, welcome to the program.
Mike, I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. And, I always love when I hear like the name of a company or the website, there's always a story behind that. And there's also a feeling and a vibe that you get. So it's like, I want to know anything that I can know about a formula that gives freedom. So I'm excited to learn from you of what you're doing in the industry. Give us a little bit of a background and story of you and then what led you to create the CEO Freedom Formula.
Yeah, it's a good question. I appreciate it. So my life has really been this mix of business and spirituality and trying to figure out how to bring those two things together. For me, I've been building businesses my whole life. My first business online, I was 13 years old. I built this company selling software online and made my first sale. And I've just always had this passion for marketing and entrepreneurship and getting to connect with people through the internet. But when I was in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with cancer. And my whole world really, over the course of several months, got completely turned upside down. It was a several-year journey of chemo and radiation and treatment. And after that period of time, I started asking deeper questions. And that, connected me to a deeper sense of who I was and my own spiritual path. And my own life really since then has been this question of how do I merge these two worlds together? Is there a way to build a business that's actually aligned with who I am on the deepest level? Is there a way to create something that isn't rooted in hustle and grind and isn't running against my body, but something that's actually that allows me to be who I'm truly meant to be, to serve, to make an impact, to help other people, to build something that is going to take care of my family, is going to be profitable. And how do I do that in a way that doesn't compromise myself along the way? So that's the question that I've really lived into. And when I think about freedom, there's different ways to look at it, right? You can look at it on an external level. And I think when most business mentors and coaches talk about freedom, generally what you hear is like, you don't want to work 60 hours a week and have a team and systems and structures to be able to support you. I think that's a big part of it. But there's also an internal component, which is how do I build something that is in integrity with who I am? How do I build an alignment with who I'm truly meant to be in a way that isn't rooted in self-sacrifice? And so many of the things that I think entrepreneurs do in business, and when we look at the things on the deeper level, it's like there's this sense that I have to be someone I'm not, or I have to do a bunch of things that just run against me, or I have to show up in a way that it just feels like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill. And so many entrepreneurs I meet are tired, they're burned out, they're tired of being that, and they're tired of feeling like they have to perform this role and put on this mask every day when they show up to work. So the real work that I love doing with entrepreneurs is breaking those things down and how can we build a business that isn't just profitable, but one that is truly connected to who they really are.
I love it. And I'm sure that is not just a download my free guide and you'll have the answer in 10 minutes. That is a process. And, when you were describing that, it made me think of something. And I think you'll agree and resonate with this. The 3 days before we leave for a big vacation, are those 3 days more productive or less productive than the 2 weeks before that? Way more productive. Right? Because it's like, we're leaving, we're going to unplug and we got to get things done. So you're way more productive. And I've heard different, productivity coaches say, I want to help you become as productive in your everyday life as you are the 2 or 3 days before vacation. Well, what you just described there is like, how can I as a CEO, business owner, entrepreneur have the processes and the scalability as if you had that life-changing occurrence like you described, but without having that life-changing occurrence? Let's just get more systematized. Let's get more freedom. Let's scale better so that you have that better balance. And I think that is a spectacular opportunity.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it
Yeah.
gets to be something that ultimately, I think when you have those things in place, and on a deeper level, when you are showing up in a way that's truly aligned, it's sustainable. It's something that you want to show
Yes.
up in. Like I love the business that I'm running today, and I didn't always feel that way about my business. There were years and chapters where it felt like on paper. I mean, a couple years ago, I built this business to 500,000 a year in sales. Everything was great on paper. It was like we had a super profitable thing. Everything was systematized and working great. But Mike, I'm not lying when I tell you, I woke up in the morning and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It just
Wow.
didn't feel like me. And
Huh.
so to be able to wake up today, and not that every day is perfect, and it's obviously an evolving thing, but to be able to have a business that I don't feel like I need to take a vacation from. Not that
Yep.
I don't take time off, but it's not like this I'm racing to the finish line waiting for the weekend. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yep, I agree. And it's kind of like, I've heard it said too, what you identify your non-negotiables and you structure those things in your calendar, like your family time, your, personal time, your workouts. And then you put your business stuff around that so that you make sure that you've got that good balance. So how do you guide your clients to go from being in the weeds and grinding and doing to becoming that true CEO without maybe having that sacrifice of revenue? Because I think a lot of people go, if I'm not the one grinding, I'm going to have revenues drop.
Yeah, it's a good question. And there are different layers and levels we could look at it on. Like the surface level, the way I think of it is all the decisions that you make in your business are really rooted in identity, which
Yeah.
is who you believe yourself to be. And so most folks, like I mentor a lot of six-figure entrepreneurs, and generally at that level, you see a lot of burnout because folks will like the first 0 to 6 figures is like most folks get there through doing everything themselves, and there's a lot of hustle. And then there's this set of activities that has created a certain level of success in their life, and the fear is okay for me to get to the next. First, people try to do more of the same, right? It's like, oh, if I got to 6 figures doing 10 pieces of content a week, well, let me double that and try to get to 20. So generally our
Yeah.
mind tends to work in this linear way where we think more is better. And for anyone who's been in business for a while, that starts to undo itself. So I think the first thing that happens is you kind of come up against a wall, right? Where, a lot of folks will burn out, or they just feel like they're hustling and grinding, and then there's this sense of, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But then there's a void that happens in that moment, because the first thing you got to do is you got to let go of all of those activities and behaviors and things that got you to where you are. And on a deeper level, you literally become a different person. Like if you identify with being valued and needed for the work that you do, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs it's like we get our sense of validation and self-worth, many of us from doing all the things and feeling like we
Yep.
have a handle on everything and control. And underneath all that is actually a lot of it is I don't feel safe when I'm not the one in the driver's seat. So a lot of it is it's actually there's a nervous system component, there's deep stuff that happens underneath the surface. But what it's really about, like on a practical level, when I'm working with entrepreneurs on this, we take an identity focus. And what that means is I think the fastest way to shift a business is to shift the identity of the entrepreneur that's behind it. So if you look at, okay, I'm running a 6-figure business today. Let's say I want to grow my business, but I want to do it without burning out. My question would be, how would you show up today if you were a 7-figure entrepreneur?
Yeah.
If you were
So
already
like
making 7 figures.
future pacing.
Yeah, and you can step into that as a lens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe my 6-figure identity, well, you look at my calendar, it's like half the things on your calendar don't exist at 7 figures that
Yeah.
you're doing at 6 figures. And so what happens is the identity becomes a lens, and you can look at your life and your decisions and the clients you're working with and the boundaries that you've created and the systems and processes and the team and all of this through the lens of that future identity. And when you start showing up as the new identity before your business matches this, a lot of people think, well, I gotta wait until I'm making 7 figures to show up as a 7-figure entrepreneur. I'm like, no. It's actually the opposite. The way that you create 7 figures is you go first. It's like
I've heard it
become
said before that you create capacity in advance of demand. And that's exactly what you're saying
that's a great
there.
way of saying it. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
capacity is really, it's the identity. It's when you build a
Yep.
bigger container internally to be able to hold whatever it is you're stepping into, the business will naturally grow and expand to meet that.
Yep.
So it starts on the inside. And I think that's something super practical. It's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's something that anyone can live into as a question. And just, it's like when you're getting on a sales call or you're thinking about working with a client or an opportunity comes across your desk, you just ask yourself, well, what would my 7-figure self do here? Or what would my, plug in whatever the revenue is or whoever you want to be. And that can really help.
That's huge. I love that because I think that we get ourselves, we get in the midst of the day in the weeds and we get grinding and you go, it's so hard to break out of that to then get to that next level. But yet if you could take a minute and go, yeah, but like you've heard it said, like, I don't know how to do that. And then the person goes, but if you did know how to do it, what would that look like? And then it's kind of like this new path your brain goes down to go, well, I guess if I did know, then I would do it this way. Well, it's exactly what you're saying there. If you were a 7-figure business owner, would that little trivial whatever really affect you as much as it is right now? Of course not. You lost that client. Oh, it's a third of your revenue. Yeah, but if you lost a client at X number of dollars and you were making 7 figures, would that really bother you? Well, maybe you'd learn from it. You'd figure out a way to keep it from happening again, but you wouldn't feel it as much. So that's a big, big piece. And I think that when people are growing and scaling in the industry, in the entrepreneur, in the coaching and the consulting industry, high ticket is a big buzzword. What do you teach your clients to do to create high ticket leads and closing those leads that feels aligned, but yet not like you're chasing down those leads and pushing and trying to fit a square peg in a round hole?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot to it. There's the external in terms of structuring the offer and making sure that the offer is built around like a tangible, what I would call an A to B transformation, which is people are not buying coaching or consulting. What they're buying is an outcome, or in other words, they're at point A, they want to be at point B. So being able to build an offer around something like that, I think that's like basic 101. A lot of folks who are probably listening to that know that. On the deepest level, the reason why someone's going to work with you, I mean, there's different levels to look at it, right? The first rung of the ladder is someone has a problem or a challenge in their life, or they have a specific desire, and they see your offer as a bridge to help them get that. And most people are selling on that level. If you look at it one level deeper, like, why do people hire people? It's actually, even if they don't consciously, if they're not consciously aware of it, we hire people because we want to grow. Our soul actually wants to expand, and we want to be around with people. We want to be around people who represent that next stage of evolution for us. And so it's like when you meet someone at a party who you just kind of feel magnetized to them or attracted to them. Usually, if you look at it, there's some aspect of their personality or who they are that represents something that you want more of in your life. And so I think that on the deepest level, like the act of marketing is really about embodying an identity that and holding that with such strength and such solidity in your life. And this is the real work of being an expert or being a coach. I don't think it's not so much about the offer, it's about who you are. And when you can become so radiant and so magnetic in that self that someone just like the person that sees you and experiences you in your content, there's just this sense of, I don't even care what you're selling. I just know something in me feels pulled to want to be around you because I know you can help me grow. It's feel like
on Shark Tank when you see the sharks going, look, I'm investing in you.
Yeah. It's you. It's always about that. And someone's conscious mind they may not be able to articulate it that way, but I think that's because your question was like, how do I not chase? And a lot of people are like, man, I feel like I just get on these sales calls and I got to like convince and persuade people. And it's because they're selling to the top rung. It's like all we're selling is offers and features and benefits, and we're selling a surface level transformation. When you step into that form of marketing and sales, it's much more about embodiment. It's like, look,
Yeah.
this is who I am. I live this. and the right person is going to feel that and know that. That's when you start transcending that form of marketing and sales, which is rooted in persuasion, and you start stepping into that space where people just, they get it, they feel connected to it. Oftentimes they don't even need a sales call. And like a lot of the selling I'll do is just via text message. Because if someone's following me on social media, they've been watching my content for 6 months or 12 months, that person has decided they're ready to grow. They've made the decision that they want to work with me. In their mind, I am no longer a commodity selling features and benefits. Mm-hmm. I'm the only person they want to work with in many cases. So not always, but in many cases. And I don't say that from a place of ego or superiority, but more so it's a different way of marketing than I think 95% of the world was taught. And 100%. That is the key to getting out of that kind of hustle, where it's like I'm just chasing clients all day.
Yep. Got to get that sale, close that deal, limited time offer, scarcity, discount, buy.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
All that stuff is there when you've done a crappy job at all this stuff.
Yep.
And we try to plaster it over with external pressure, which is basically everything you just said. It's how do I try to push someone into a decision that they don't already feel intuitively that they want to make.
Yep. So, hey, walk us through the CEO freedom formula from a high level. I know we could probably spend 3 days going through it, but give us a high level approach.
Yeah. So I created this because when I started working with entrepreneurs who were at or around that 6-figure mark, wanted to scale, there was just like these common things that kept coming up again and again and again. And when we made that shift and started, helping folks at that level, this was the thing that, like, if we can check these 3 boxes and move through these 3 steps into this process, this is the thing that's going to allow you to unlock that next level of business growth. And more importantly, do it in a way that you're not hustling and grinding and working harder. So step number 1 is identity, which is what we just talked about, because I believe that all business growth starts from the inside out. And a lot of people try to change their business without changing themselves, and they wonder why their business doesn't grow. We're so focused on strategy, we're so focused on the outside, but the business you have is a perfect reflection of who you are. And so the business won't change until you do. So identity is really about being able to expand, as you said, capacity earlier. It's asking those identity-based questions. How would I show up in this situation if I was a 7-figure entrepreneur? Being able to start to model on the inside the type of entrepreneur that can hold the business that you are wanting to create. That's step number 1. And that's the most important step. Honestly, if you did nothing else but that, you have a very high chance of being successful. And it's one of the hardest things to do. Like, I don't want to undersell it as like, you just start asking it. It's actually incredibly difficult. Because it generally means you're going to come up against all the things within yourself that you're hanging on to a certain way of being because you're afraid and scared. This is like deep, deep work. It's not for the faint of heart. But that is the step 1. From there, we can start looking at the business and saying, okay, well, what needs to shift on a practical level? Step number 2 is eliminate and leverage. And the truth is, most entrepreneurs are just doing a bunch of stuff in their business that shouldn't be done by them, or just shouldn't be done at all. And that becomes the bottleneck. Like, if you're spending 10 hours or 20 hours a week doing admin, or doing like $20 an hour tasks in your business, that's taking you away from the things that you really should be doing that are going to allow the business to grow and expand. So that becomes a capacity issue. And so the entrepreneur that is able to let go of those things and to move up the value ladder and start to focus on higher value tasks in their business, that's one of the keys externally to really be able to shift and grow the business. So, in step 2, oftentimes we'll do things like time logs and we'll audit, like, where is an entrepreneur spending their time, and what would it look like to outsource or delegate some of these things to either people on their team or to be able to hire people. All of this also starts in identity. Because once you start asking that question, how would I be spending my day if I was a seven-figure entrepreneur? You'll automatically start doing these things naturally. So this is where step one is kind of like the foundation of everything. But step two is eliminate and leverage your time. And then step three is optimizing your marketing for scale. Because marketing in 99% of businesses is one of the biggest constraints. In other words, we just need more leads, or we need to get better at converting the leads that are coming in the door. So this is when we look at how do we create more leverage around your current marketing process. Shifting from things like oftentimes a lot of folks are doing stuff that just it's good, but it doesn't scale. Like most, early stage entrepreneurs, a lot of what they're doing is like intimacy based marketing, where we're having a lot of one-to-one conversations with people, and we're doing a lot of the stuff that actually works quite well when you're in the earlier days of growing your business, but starts to break down as you scale. So this is when we shift to more leveraged forms of marketing, things like content or live trainings or things that can reach and communicate with more people at once. You start selling one-to-many instead of one-to-one. We start building more systems and processes that are designed to do more of the marketing for you. So you can shift from this like time-intensive model and way of marketing to more of a leveraged way of communicating with more people at once to increase the lead flow coming into the business. So there's a lot there. That was a mouthful, but Steps 1 through 3, step 1 would be identity. Step 2 would be eliminate and leverage. And then step 3 would be optimizing your marketing for scale. And those 3 things, you just knock those things off, your business can't help but grow.
I tell you, one of the things you mentioned made me think of something, what's easy to do is easy not to do. So probably each and every one of those steps, there's elements in there where it's like, oh, well, I've heard that before. Oh, I've seen that before. But you have to look at everything in the sequence and put together in the right way, and then do the work and roll up the sleeves, because don't let yourself feel like what's easy to do is easy not to do, because then it won't get done. So I think that is just so great, Jason. Thank you so much for that overview. If someone is interested in getting some more information, what's the best way they can learn more and reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, you go to jasonmoss.com. You mentioned earlier, like, hey, this is not one of those things. I do deep work with folks, and I will say, it's not one of those things you download a lead magnet and you read through it and you get everything, you need kind of thing. But we do have a really great guide. It's a scaling guide on the website that walks through this 3-step framework in more detail and gives you some more context on how to apply these things to your business. I think it's super valuable. And it'll definitely give you more clarity if you were like, okay, this is helpful, but what do I do with this? So if you just go to jasonmoss.com, there's a link on the main page. You can just put in your email and download that for free. And we also got a YouTube channel that you can connect with on the site. Lots of free content, trainings, videos that go through all my methodology in more detail. And I would encourage you to shoot me an email and say hello too. I love connecting with people.
Excellent. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And likewise, take care.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.